Committee to Protect Journalists, a really prestigious and award that many great journalists have won. He is also recently, I'll just introduce him briefly. He's a former member of parliament in Georgia. He's the former Minister of Justice in the Georgian government. He is the founder of Mtavari TV and the media holding, which is one of the chief Georgian opposition media. He was imprisoned for his work just over a year ago in what many independent observers believe to be a politically motivated case. And he got out of prison about a month ago. June. Okay, a few months ago. Okay, well, good. So you're used to it. Great. So Nika's going to give a brief talk about countering Russian propaganda. I'm going to ask him just a few questions about his experience and thoughts on Georgia, and then I really want to get questions from the audience. I can see we have an engaged group today. So, Nika, over to you.
Thank you very much for having me. And for...
Yes.
Thank you. That works?
No,
it doesn't work?
No.
So thank you very much for having me here. So I will add that I was Minister of Education, no problem with that part of my civil service, I would say. So, but I was not best, and that's the best Minister of Education is right in front of us. Some of my just I will start with my points, which is Russian propaganda, how it works in Georgia, and how we can defeat it. So the first thing when we are speaking about how to defeat propaganda and how it works actually, what are the pillars of propaganda in Russian playbook, so-called Russian playbook. First of all, it's they use this fringe movement, but mostly it's a far-right movement, especially in Europe. So, and the first pillar is nationalistic idea, so-called, kind of extremes of nationalistic idea, fringe movements, nationalists. So, there is a few countries where this idea is severely used. For example, it's in Hungary, where the so-called Harriman trauma is present, and it's a historic trauma. After the First World War, there was Trianon Treaty and Treaty of Paris, when Hungary was, left as a landlocked country. That was a huge country before. It was almost half of Hungarian empire. So, and they have this kind of trauma, and this is kind of heavy overdose of moral pride, I would say, the nationalistic sentiments. And this trauma is heavily used, therefore, by Mr. Orban, first of all, and it makes ruling party of Hungary this like a fringe nationalistic movement, really party, which is fringe right, in the very right extreme of the spectrum. That's another example. Probably Serbia, where this trauma is rationalized by the Kosovo battle, the Kosovo field sentiments, which are actually the most elite, because actually Serbia has never won in Kosovo battle. They actually were defeated in the Kosovo battle by Turks, but still there was serious changes in curriculums in school books by Milosevic, and that was overdose of national pride. That's why it works there in Serbia as well, and which is mostly for Russian countries folks. So does it work in Georgia? The answer is not, because no, because that we have the same kind of problem. Occupied territories, which are South Ossetia, so-called, and Caucasus. So, Georgian, Russian-style Georgian propaganda never approached these topics, because that they never approach in negative sense Russia. So it's not working topics of Russian propaganda in Georgia. The second pillar is so-called sovereignists, movements of sovereignists. The same is, for example, if we take the example of Hungary. A most important narrative is Soviet Moscow is the same now that I'm in Brussels, and Washington is the same as Moscow was in Soviet era. So it was somehow tried in Georgia on the ground, but it never worked because Georgian people are ready to transfer a part of sovereignty to the European Union to get more advantages, so safety, prosperity, the freedom and human rights, democracy, etc. So it is not workable at all. There are some fringe movements which are using heavily this kind of arguments, but it's not about sovereignty. It's more about some kind of traditions, not conservatives, they are traditionalists, let's say. So these fringe movements actually using it heavily, traditional approach of traditionalists, and who is engaged very heavily in that is Georgian Church. Orthodox Church, especially the administration of the church called Patriarchal Church. So these kind of conservative movements are more about, sentiments, religious sentiments, traditions, etc. But they are inducing some kind of anger against European movements, again, the collective West, so-called collective West, and which is, prolonging somehow by the media, pro-governmental media, Russian media, extremely activating this topic every day almost, and it warrants more of of disapproval. So kind of as a result, we have some kind of outrage, indignation of the really pro-Western parties, civil society, pro-Western media, etc. Most important instruments implemented much of propaganda in Georgia is fear. The people have fear. First of all, is a fear of death, which is pretty much a reflex emotion, but still it should not be boiling. It should be some kind of simmering emotion, because reflective emotion, if it simmers and not boils, it goes to form some kind of mood, more shaping the anxieties, not so much fears, but shaping the anxieties and not panic. It should not, the thing is that panic should be counterproductive for governments. But anxieties as a mood, that's kind of prolonged mood, it's very advantageous to government, and I will try to explain why. The mood of fear, which is I have this kind of words of propaganda minister of Nazi party Goebbels, that's a deep caliber of sick air, imbued by the fear, but not particularly boiling, but simmering, as I mentioned. It is that's terrorize people, that's freezes kind of I would say cognitive processes. It's disruptive for informed choice, especially on elections, and induces some kind of unthinking physical processes which interfere with thinking processes and discourage being dissident, discourage dissent. So that is, very good ally. Fear of death, which is fear of war, translated into Georgia, a very good ally of current status quo, because people are very cautious to change something when they are afraid. So they prepare to leave everything as it is, because the fear of war, that is our national trouble, still open, still bleeding, and it's a fear of war of 2008, and the previous war in 1991, Civil War in 1992, Russia in Abkhazia and South Ossetia. So that makes Georgian dream stronger and stronger than it is in reality. What is how it's provided? It is provided by media, especially by TV stations, institutes, media, the hugest media outlet in Georgia, which is pro-governmental and unfortunately engaged in Russian propaganda, and Gustav too, which was used to be my baby earlier, a year earlier, maybe until 2018, 2019, but now it's not just pro-Russian, pro-governmental, but it is pro-Russian. First time in the history of this channel. This channel is probably the best channel in Caucasus, not just in Georgia. Used to, once, but now it's pro-Russian channel, which is kind of first time in history of this great channel. So the next fear, which is instrumentalized, it's a fear of shame. Fear of shame works, especially in Georgian machoism culture and the southern culture of machoism, as a fear of shame of being somehow attached to somehow weak man category, or somehow kind of tied with orientation. That's why our State Security Service, and we have our Mentasingas on the ground, which is Mr. Vladimir, State Security Service head. They are following people, and they are making video types, cable, kind of wire types, and then aliens, or the spreading lies or spreading rumors about some kind of orientation, either man or woman, but men are more vulnerable to that. So that fear of shame is a very, not just instrument of blackmail, but it's an instrument of fringe movements against LGBTQ, plus against the collective, so-called collective West, because that's really Western value to appreciate the rights of vulnerable groups. So, and that is used heavily as well, but mostly it's a fear of war for what works on the ground in Georgia. How it works, that was more about content, but how it works by emotional messages. There is no ideology. Propaganda starts with ideology in Georgia, because never ideology was working scenario in Georgia. While Soviet Union, Georgian communists never were ideologized communists. They were just corrupted guys who made money. So the ideology of communism was more present in Russia. For example, they were decent with the Baltics, communists, not Georgians. So the same here now. Actually, it's a quote of Stalin. What we have to do with Georgians, to just give them khachapuri and make them happy with dance and singing and etc. So it's a very good recipe for how to handle with Georgians. Not khachapuri and dancing, but still emotional messages. What is about emotion?
Bit closer, please.
Okay. Can I?
Yeah.
That's right. So, and we have a few examples of that. That's messages of propaganda are very square, very flat, I would say, and we don't need to escape if there is nothing to do, because there is nothing. If you're digging these messages, there is nothing. Underneath of these messages, there is some kind of messages, like, for example, when I was in prison, I was observing for solitude, and there was message that American grandmas in general, requesting money from their daughters for raising their grandchildren. So in reality, it was some information. No one knows false, or maybe it's real information, but one example of that was generalized. Then it was used for vox pop, so-called vox pop, vox populi, in the streets of Sukdivi, which is very conservative, in this sense, very conservative city, not in other sense, but in this sense, it's very conservative city. Grandmas were approached, especially grandmas who was with their grandchildren. And this was proposed that, that in the United States, these kind of things are happening. That was the serious outcry. I mean, this reaction was, unimaginable, because for Mengelian grandma, it's something, disastrous. That's unimaginable, absolutely. That is how it is manipulated. And it is not actually manipulation, because manipulation needs some ground behind, but there was no ground even. It's manufactured and fabricated information, and then it's spread by the TV and added emotional message. I mean, made it emotional more by using those Mengelian grandmas. So the same was with the war. Especially Ukrainians were blamed that they engaged their nation in war, and giving information about kids who are dying even today in this war. There was attached information that Ukrainians did nothing to avoid this war. That's how it works. The first message is emotional, and then it is attached to the false fact. And how we can defeat it? We can defeat it providing another emotional information and then attaching it to the right facts. Emotional information means not lies, but emotions. Because TV, especially TV, not writing journalism maybe, but TV is about emotions. I mean, keyword for TV is interesting. I mean, keyword is always interesting. Anything other goes next after that word. So, and propaganda is always interesting. That's always interesting, even when propaganda is BSing. So it is still interesting. It is shocking, it is joyful, and then it comes to entertainment. But I'm trying to be very short. I mean, that's why I'm skipping the question, skipping the topics. Then it comes to entertainment, and I would say more infotainment, which is combination of those two: information, news, political lectures, etc., and entertainment, real entertainment. So if the TV immediately, sells this kind of messages via entertainment, we can neutralize our TV stations, I mean, critical TVs, these kind of messages via entertaining as well, not via lectures, data analysis, some books or brochures, etc., etc. So we are for common people. TV is Coca-Cola, it's not champagne. So we have to provide some kind of easily accessible, easily digestible messages in an easily accessible and easily digestible way. If we are preaching and teaching and they are entertaining people, they are winning always. There is no way for financing media literacy for defeating propaganda. There is no way, because first of all, pace of life, is you don't have time for double checking. So the second of all, Georgians love to be entertained, not preached. What is important, the so-called hands. How it works, I mean, on Imedi, for example, or Rosavi too, which news programs are absolutely without any reputation and trust, and even not interesting, because they are providing propaganda about United Nations movement, for example, which is 10 years ago from the past, facts from the past, and it's not about news. We need some news, what happens now. But what they are doing, it's not news. It's just storytelling about their political rivals. And how it works. They have 2 episodes of interesting entertainment. It's a principle of sandwich. That's interesting entertainment, then news, but you're waiting the next episode of Interesting Entertainment, and then goes next episode of Interesting Entertainment. And percentages, I mean, it's actually hamburger is different way, and a different way here is meat, bread, and meat. So that's no one is interested by this news edition, but still no one is switching. And that is as it works as a background noise. And if you are listening to this background noise without any kind of intention to share these values or share this information and or trust in that, but it works as a background noise. And if you are listening every day that interest of the West, collective West, that they're labeling it collective West is 1+1 parents, I mean man plus one, man plus man families, which is maybe okay in some societies. I mean, even in Georgian societies, not families, but marriage, I mean, gay marriage is not an issue in Georgia. So, but who makes it as an issue? Not gay community, but Russian propaganda. They are giving us information that that is an issue. The collective West is rising, and civil society is rising, and political parties, pro-Western political parties are rising. In reality, they are rising this kind of question, and then is rebuttal of that. So they are providing the rebuttal. So and you are listening to that, and at the end of the day, maybe after 1 month or after 1 year, you have information that there is a problem with gay marriage in Georgia, and Western society is requesting gay marriage in Georgia. That's a false information, but people believe in that. I mean, common viewers of TV and common viewers are most important strata against whom propaganda and for whom propaganda is working. Because informed strata knows how to double check, knows what happens on the ground, and they do not need kind of additional sources for that. Or if they need, they can Google it or something like that. But common people have no possibility to double check that, or are not willing to double check that. They are by entertainment, so-called sandwich principle, or even by entertainment programs, they are taking information about that. That there is most important problem of the West is requesting this kind of system in Georgia because of their tradition and Christianity, etc. We are resisting it, or Ukraine and collective West needs us to be engaged in the war against Russia, and we are resisting. Our government is resisting because we don't want Georgians to die in this war, etc. And Georgians are dying in this war actually because they are fighting for Ukraine and their country as well. I mean, Georgia. So that's how it works, and what is needed on the ground? It's a financing of TV stations. And this change in the paradigm of financing media in Georgia by the international international financial institutions, international donors, etc. Because infotainment actually is an invention of this country. Where are we now? While Cold War, Voice of America was not just about news and anti-Soviet information, not propaganda. But it was about jazz, it was about Beatles, it was about good music. That was a hook for the listeners. And then information, because it's just information, just political talk shows. They kind of the people at some point they are averting it because they are tired of this, sick of and information, politics, etc. They need to have fun. And we should provide this real information via fun as well, not just via news and political actions. There is one important case in Moldova where European Union financed Moldavian TV to do programs, entertainment programs, entertaining programs. Why? Because any other entertaining programs were Russian speaking. The Russian language, actually it was provided but just by the Russian channels who are present in Moldova. And the language of financed TV station was Romanian, Moldavian, same language. So in Georgia, we have absolutely the same, but even worse and dangerous. We have the pro-Russian channels, but they are not speaking Russian. They are provided in Georgia. So that is most dangerous part of that. Why? Because you can't identify as Russian propaganda simply by listening language. You have to dig deeper. And you can understand that it's Russian propaganda, but it can be too late because messages are somewhere here. So how to win some kind of brains of people is important questions, but we need to win hearts of people. And hearts of people not always about cognitive processes. It's emotional processes mostly. So what I want to say I had to say a lot about that, but so I want to give credits to James Jasper, his great book, The Emotions of Protest, to Sergei Guriev and Daniel Treisman and their incredible book, Spin Dictators, and Hans Jürgen Böss, his great book, Narcissism and Power. So I just want to finalize my small talk, I would say. There is a very important successful case when Georgian media, especially civil society and people, defeated propaganda. That is case of so-called Russian law. I mean, the foreign agent law. So what was done on the ground in Georgia? I was in prison, actually. I was observing that it was very nervous, what they will do, and everything goes smoothly and in a very correct way and a very efficient and effective way. They labeled it, I mean, critical media for Western society as a Russian law because it was Russian law. Any other label, so some kind of foreign agent law, there's law about transparency, etc. No one buys it because it's very vague and dubious messages. You should call a spade if you want to defeat propaganda. So that was done. It was labeled as a Russian law because it was Russian law. And our media was step ahead of propaganda. That is most important. Resilience is not enough because resilience means how to fulfill status quo at battle. So before someone approaches you and how to restore the status quo. Resilience is not enough. You should be forward always. You should fight. You should have step ahead. You should set agenda. If propaganda follows you, propaganda is always lose. If you follow propaganda, propaganda wins. Why? Because you can refute propaganda messages if you follow it. But for refutation, you need somehow repeat those messages. That is mirroring propaganda and spreading messages, which is actually the aim of propaganda. Not make new reality, but make new lies. Make disinformation, which will be later refuted, but that will be later. That will be too late. And who is, agenda setter? Who is a winner on the ground of media and information? We can just follow. If we are just followed, we can be first on finish line. We will be just second. So that is most important thing about propaganda. If it sets agenda, propaganda is always better. If it gives perceptions, not process and facts. And you are not processing, you are just getting, perceptions about facts, which are not real facts, but just perceptions. You are digesting it easily because it's kind of already done. And in Georgia, there is a live media TV, that's a Soviet media. What is proposed by the TV is probably always is somehow describes the truth. In reality, it's very Soviet approach, but still that's a givenness. So we have to know that's givenness. As in Georgia, we have to know our people in order to work with them. So that's how it works. Probably the perceptions versus objective reality. Always perception are winning because objective reality needs to be analyzed, etc. That's how it works in 21st century, at least maybe. Not here, but in Georgia, definitely. When frame is emotions, perceptions always win. So we need emotional frame with objective reality in order to defeat perceptions, not right perception, but false perceptions of the propaganda. That is how I see propaganda problem, Russian propaganda problem in Georgia. Not different thing is Chinese propaganda, but this kind of our lecture is not about Chinese propaganda, still is on the ground in Georgia as well, but in a different way, works in a different way. But that is about Russian propaganda. We have success defeating it, and we have to go in this direction.
Thank you. I have a few questions, and then I'd like to open it up. I'll just comment first that it is the way that what you described is also very applicable to the American case, where we have the kind of Trumpian party that sets the agenda, and then everybody's always reacting, and there's this whole industry of fact checkers who are not very effective because people don't really, they've already kind of accepted the framing, the emotional framing, and then you're just not quite catch up, as you described very well. I do want, when you were in prison, did you have a choice of which TV channels to watch?
Yes,
You did. So you chose to watch some of this
Yeah.
government propaganda and as a way of.
I was interested mainly with government propaganda and reactions of pro-Western channels and critical channels on that. Unfortunately, there was failures of ours, and not because I was in prison. That was same when I was in charge of my channel as well. So about this mirroring propaganda. And then we decided, my TV channel, without me, I'm not general director, but we have considerations about that. There is very important red line. On one hand, we have kind of, for example, this is one case. Prime Minister delivers speech in Parliament, which is full of blaming and shaming, for example, the LGBTQ society. Full of, and blaming West for these war issues and blaming opposition, some kind of igniting some public perception of the war and public perception of the government and preparing coup in Georgia, etc. So we just decided not to cover this issue because there was no public interest behind that. Absolutely not. And in reality, it was not speech delivered as a state address because it was not about economy, it was not about budget, it was not about problems and challenges of our security. It was just blaming and shaming and full of lie, especially. One day we actually absolutely do not air it and absolutely avoid it. Just mentioning that there was speech today in Parliament, and that was mostly lie, period. So that is not always possible, of course, because you have to provide information, but it was not aired in a live translation because we are always giving live for this kind of state address, and all of the channels had live translations, including critical ones, except our channels. So rating of our channel was highest next day. So, but still, we actually avoid this, rejected this idea of live translation. And later in news, just mentioned that that was debate side of the press, etc. Period. And especially that was announced that this preparing coup by the state security services without any grounds, without any factual circumstances, just blaming opposition and particular political country that they are preparing coup. So there was no any mention of reliable facts. We have no even information about that. And you know what was the result? The topic actually was lost and forgotten. Even next day, no one remembered that within 1 week. So propaganda failed, definitely. So that's how it works. But as I mentioned, that is double-edged sword. So on the other hand, you have to manage this information. You have to provide information. People need information. So that is red line, and it is very, very kind of tough how to navigate through rocks. But that is how it works in Georgia, and we have to manage with that somehow.
So a kind of similar question about something that you mentioned, which I thought was very interesting, about the reframing of the so-called NGO law, right?
Yeah.
Calling it a Russian law.
Foreign laws, yeah.
So, you know, as a representative of the journalism school, I do wonder, I mean, it wasn't actually Russian law, right? It wasn't literally, you know,
Yes.
right? It was in Georgia, it was in Georgian, it wasn't actually, so is there a little bit of a danger of calling things
Yes.
Russian that, you know?
Yes, but it was Russian though. I mean, it was actually manufactured. I mean, the paradigm was Russian law. It's similar, absolutely similar. And you know what was asked? I mean, this counter message of government that this is American law. It is FARA. That was message. We knew that that will be message. So we were a step ahead, and we called is how it is in reality. That was Russian law. And what is most important part of that, the aim was very Russian and it was not about Russian organizations, because there is no Russian organizations, I mean NGOs in Georgia. So they are working by different channels, but not by NGOs. That was about Western NGOs. So that was Russian. I mean, a lot of countries then did it, especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina, that was in the Republika Srpska, so-called. It was attempts in other Balkan countries, and as I remember, and post-Soviet countries as well. So it was in Belarus, and probably in Azerbaijan. We knew what happens, and we did whatever was right would be effective, and it was effective. And Russian law was actually, I mean, it was adopted in first reading, but that was serious public outcry. That was thousands of people in the streets, and that was national pride actually. But our national pride is not some kind of trauma. Our national pride is that we're Europeans. We have to go to, we need Europe, we need European Union, and we need Georgia in the European Union, and we need European Union in Georgia. So that was statement by the European Union that law is Russian. That was statements by the United States that law is Russian. And we were told that if you guys adopting this law, you're going to Russia, not to the West. So that was, and we even have now started to explain why it is not FARA, why it is not America. We just called it Russian law and provided all the arguments that the law is Russian. So the arguments of the government was absolutely the same Putin had provided few years earlier. So the agent is, you know, that agent is not bad word. Actually, agent has a very bad kind of connotations in Georgian language, because it means agent of KGB or CIA or etc. So secure state security services. But the arguments of Putin and Kobakhidze was the same. The agent could be the bank agent or some kind of insurance agent, etc., etc. The same wording, absolutely the same wording. So was it useful? It was useful. Was it crucial? It was crucial. Because of that, we got status a few days ago, just because of these costs, just because of this kind of emotional reaction of the Georgian people. And then was crystallized, kind of message that Georgian people deserves status, not government. After this operation, I would say, when media, civil society, and people were together against Russian propaganda and defeated Russians.
So just briefly about Georgian politics, you are out of prison. Mikhail Saakashvili still in prison. What are your kind of thoughts about the future of politics in Georgia and what could happen?
So Mikhail Saakashvili is in prison, but he's political. 100%. There are no doubts. There are no question marks. He is in prison because he was president of Georgia, because he is personal rival of Putin. That is Putin's perception. That how is kind of has a lot of kind of, we have a lot of information where the Putin is saying that Saakashvili should be hanged with his different festivals, etc. This he perceives Saakashvili as a personal rival. Actually, they are on different sides of civilization, so different parts of history. I mean, this bright side and dark side of history. Saakashvili, the biggest reformer in the history of Georgia. I mean, the westernized country. He is very kind of, he is not in a gray zone. He is not the guy who is likable for everyone. Okay, but he is a huge scale figure, and any huge scale figure is not likable for everyone. And it's very natural. But you have to know that he is dying there. He is there just because of personal rivalry with Putin, personal fear of Ivanishvili, and just because he was president of Georgia, who westernized country and brought country from Russian influence, somehow brought from there and making Georgia with help of this guy, for example, who defeated corruption in the system of education, making possible Georgian, all of us, Georgians, the students of different universities, especially law schools, for example, which was the highest desires of Georgians, that makes possible without corruption, just by what is name of it's
United Entrance
national exams. So so that was different parts of governance with this kind of reforms. I think it's the most effective one, but still that was this kind of reform in police, in the different directions, probably in army, justice, and logistics, especially, and justice. I mean, that's bureaucracy, etc. So I'm in bureaucracy of having bureaucracy problems here, providing car tax or passports, etc., etc. In Georgia, it is possible in a few days, in a few hours even. So that was reform in this segment of civil service. So, and for Russia, it was absolutely unacceptable. So Saakashvili is now serving his term just because of that. And he is political prisoner. What goes in politics, we will see. That probably situation is not not very healthy for opposition, and not very advantageous for opposition, because it's somehow kind of a bit weak, unfortunately, but they are resisting this huge amount of propaganda, info flooding, which is very important tool of propaganda, not just disinformation, but info flooding, where it's kind of full. You have to go through. It's not easy. There is huge resources to the side of our oligarch and ruling party. That is administrative resources, rigging elections, criminals engaged in elections, police, dangerous criminal as engaged in elections, of course, in the pro-governmental sense, and rigging elections together with criminals. So, but still, I think the Western opposition have to manage with that. Because 2024 elections are crucial for our country. That's about how Georgian history will continue. Either we are a victim of Russia forever, or we are a European country. Because our new generations, they are present here, absolutely perfect, absolutely great. Have to transfer our country to them. Period. And Russians know that this is momentum. This is probably the last opportunity to, kind of cementing Russian interest in Georgia. Because if we will be successful in transferring our country to new generations of Georgia, that will be end of the story for Russia, because those generations are absolutely unaware of what is Russia. They are not interested in what is Russia. Absolutely not. For them, it's just some geographical units. So they are Western. We are Soviet board. Sometimes we have to filter out our emotions, our kind of reactions, because it comes from the very bottom of our hearts or minds, etc. Because we are Soviet board. Those guys are born in free Georgia. They are free people.
They don't want to return back to Georgia. That's the problem. After they have
They
degrees, everybody promised, but they find the beautiful jobs here, and they don't want to go back.
That's great that they are finding beautiful jobs here, but they will be back if Georgia is Western country. If it's Russia, even my kids were out of Georgia because they can't live in Russia. I can understand them. I'm not going to live in Russia because I'm the whole my life in the fight against Russia. So that is my family tradition already established. Because my father was dissident, he was imprisoned for being dissident, for his negativities against Soviet Union. And I was imprisoned after 30 years of Georgian independence as a dissident. I have any desire for my kids at the same day. I have no any desire. So
and who's gonna change if we don't
we
back?
have to. There is no one to do peace because instead of us. So the West can just helpful, but they have just help us. But the thing is that we have to do this. We must do this because we owe something to our country. That is our parent. That is our homeland. We have to change. There's no other way. So I think we will manage it in 2024 somehow. I'm believing.
Let's take more questions, but in an orderly fashion. Silence. Yeah.
Well, I would like to ask, so how you see that we will manage that? For example, this young generation, they get education here. Well, let's ask the questions. Are you going back in Georgia after you get degree? Yes. What are you gonna do there? You're gonna work just like a 3 times less salary? Are you going to do that?
If that's what it takes to make our country better again.
Okay, that's one of them. Yeah, I'm glad you answered that, but a lot of people who get
So it's not
education.
about salaries more. I think that's about different things, not salaries.
Some of them, they don't
Because,
want to be
in
poverty.
United States, salaries will be always higher in Georgia. That's not that's not a decisive issue.
Okay, how-
Decisive issue is what happens on the ground. If it's not democracy, if it's Russian influence, if it's, you know, surrounded by, you know, even the guys who are no one, but still having a lot of money and influence. Well, there is no place for these brilliant minds and Georgian youth, of course not. But it's not a matter of salary, so I believe in that.
Okay, how do you see, how do you? Okay.
That question, because I question myself if I would go back. And it's not about only finding a good job, it's also into perspective. When you have a perspective and you see that is an opportunity, you will go. And after all, immigration is tough. It's long and very hard process, but you find most comfortable in your homeland, nowhere else, and that's not questioned.
That's
Believe me, I'm the.
I absolutely know what does it mean, because it's about context. Yeah, it's about socialization, because first, I mean, kind of generations of immigrants, they are never part of society, never feel the same as, that never have the same feelings as they have in their countries, their social context. That's country and homeland is context, your context of your life. It's a, you know, chain of some kind of acts and people and, you know, even trees on the streets, etc. That's, you know, memories, etc. That's about context. That's not about how to live comfortable, spend a comfortable life. It's very different. So I can understand what you mean. You know, perspective. Now, about perspective, what I am observing now in Georgia, not just poor people are living in Georgia. They're very successful and self-realized people are living in Georgia. That is very dangerous symptom, because they can't see perspective for their kids and they are not safe. They can, you know, they are not feeling themselves safe. And they are actually, you know, can't see them as a part of European society. For Georgians who hates Russians, I mean, as a state, not as a people, so being part of Russia, that's, you know, it has penalty, you know, for them, it's end of the story. So never Georgian will be happy to be part of Russia. Never, no one, just very marginal groups, I would say. Only thing who is maybe, you know, kind of moves us toward Russia. I mean, at least not stopping this kind of, not being very sound against and very vocal against Russia. It's just fear of war, as I mentioned. So some of us, because of this fear, can be very, you know, silent, and pro-government choice could be the outcome of this fear, and is very often outcome of this fear. But still, Georgians hate Russia. That's a given. I would know that.
These are two questions I would like to ask Mr. Gvaramia. First one is a prosecutor or minister of justice who organized attacks and raids on television capable of being a good prosecutor or minister? Furthermore, in the future, this individual will become a journalist and founder of the television. Do you believe that above mentioned facts based on democratic and Western principles? And the second question.
Yeah, but maybe how we start the first question.
Start is a prosecutor of Minister of Justice organize attacks and raids of the television, capable of being a good prosecutor or minister. I'm talking about this situation, what happened in 2007 in
I
television.
understand what you mean, but capable of being good prosecutor, okay, fine.
And second question is, in your opinion, why did the president of Georgia, Salome Zurabichuli, pardon you and release you from prison? The president he publicly labeled as a Russian agent a few years ago.
Okay, the second question is for President Zurabishvili, not for me.
What's your opinion about this?
I have no opinion why she did it. That's a question for her. The first question is misinformation. That's a manipulation. I can explain why. That was not my decision to raise Imedi, but that was legal, but that was serious mistake, not just mine, of the state apparatus. That it was heavy mistake, probably one of the heaviest mistake of previous government, period. I'm absolutely sure of it. And I have stated it a lot of times. And I can, you know, my mistakes are my mistakes. That's part of my life, and I can mention it always. And I can be humble with that. But your question was, could you repeat it? Capable of being
Good prosecutor or minister.
That's one question, that generalization. I don't know, okay, if minister is doing this, is he capable to be good minister? What kind of question?
I mean,
I can understand really.
No, I mean, furthermore, you created television,
But you are asking is capable to be minister or to be director general of the television?
I
What do you
mean,
mean?
generally, you created television, and you think this situation what happened in 2007 in Georgia, it's like good background of your like television history in Georgia?
Of mine?
Yeah, maybe yours, yeah.
No, I already endorsed your vision that it was a serious mistake. Including mine, but I have no capacity to send troops somewhere. So, especially as a minister of justice, I spent time working on mostly on a kind of suit against Russia, because it was a time of war. And my main achievement was that we won this suit on the very beginning. It was interim measure given by the Hague International Tribunal and by the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. That was my achievement as a Minister of Justice. And there was no, actually, that's a factual mistake. It was not 2007, and there was no case of Imedi. That was 2008, late 2008. That's factual mistake. That's why that's Minister of Justice. Why you mentioned Minister of Justice? I simply can't understand. As a prosecutor general, I never was prosecutor general in my life. Was prosecutor
I didn't say
general.
prosecutor general. You were the prosecutor, but not general.
I was not prosecutor. Yeah. Well, I was deputy prosecutor general, and I was in charge of public affairs. I have no capacity to make any order to do something in a legal way. I was in charge of public affairs, but still, I'm endorsing your argument that that was a mistake, including mine. But the heavy mistake of the state apparatus, then, is it my question? Is it my answer?
Thank you.
Hi, much for it. It's maybe a little complicated question considering the fact that you spent almost a year in prison last year. But I had more question about the fake news, especially in the generative AI times, when it's extremely easy to generate some fake news through videos or through images and spread it through social media or different type of texts. So what's your thoughts? how to mitigate those type of risks going forward, especially in a country like Georgia, where it's very hard to manage those type of.
That's actually my lecture was about this, I mean, around this topic. So social media is a different thing. TV is different thing, you know, in social media, it's, I mean, double checking and fact check, it's more workable scenario than in TV. Because, you know, that's social media has some kind of, we have time to double check it. In TV, it's almost impossible, so. But social media works, I mean, severely for making, you know, preparing ground for emotional kind of perceptions. And after all, it goes to TV. Because our government especially is testing, you know, messages, how, whether it could be working or not via social media, especially, but still, I have to mention that despite the growing role of social media in Georgia, and 75% of Georgians is engaged in Facebook, that is leading social media in Georgia. But despite that, TV is crucial. TV can change, you know, perceptions. TV is able to provide more granularity and clarity of facts, about facts, and TV is about common people, as I mentioned. In social media, engaged is mostly strata of informed people, more informed people, who are, you know, could be manipulated. Of course, it's about manipulation as well, but mostly or not mostly maybe, but a lot of people engaged in social media, you know, have more information, is more prepared to recognize this information and to analyze the facts. And it's not entertainment, as I mentioned. That's just about shocking or joyful news, maybe the kind of entertainment could be kind of entertainment, but you know, it's not very fluid thing. It's mostly it's kind of information for, it works more as a, you know, preparatory thing for then spreading information via TV, because TV is a powerful tool. Yeah, I would not underestimate social media's role, but not overestimate too. In the United States, it works differently. It's not actually, Facebook is not a very important thing in the United States.
Twitter.
It is.
Facebook.
The Twitter
Twitter is
the
number
most
one.
influential. Yeah, but Twitter is more influential, but still, you know, that's getting information via some kind of social media is more common for United States than for Georgians. So a lot of people are getting information via social media, including me. I'm running TV, but including me, that's I prefer, you know, because it's kind of hypertext or links or, you know, kind of, but serious problem with social media is kind of so-called headlines. That's a headline war waged by the government, by the Russian propaganda, and because, you know, there could be fact, real fact under this headline, but, you know, these headlines still matter as a hypertext, you know, it goes to you in your mind. So it's serious kind of problem in Georgia. It's a serious challenge, but still, I have more kind of knowledge about how to defeat it via TV than I'm not very good specialist of social media.
We have a question from Zoom about the church. You mentioned the church as kind of vector. The general question is, you know, do you have a vision of Georgia where you kind of incorporate these more conservative traditional elements?
It's absolutely possible because conservative Georgians are not against, I mean, conservative Georgians has own vision because you have conservatives here on the ground as well in the United States, for example. Yeah. That's those people are living with their vision about, for example, about kind of different vulnerable groups, different people with different religions. They could not like them, definitely, but they have right to not like someone or something, but they should appreciate their rights and never approach them in negative sense. So that is most important things. Why have to change the minds of those people? Could we change it? No, that is questions. But still, that rights of people to, kind of have own opinions, own religion, own orientation, own language, etc., they should be upheld by these people. So that is quite much possible. It's not just a matter of obedience to the law. It's a matter of, being part of society, getting incorporated in society. And despite the fact that we are, all of us are different, we should somehow coexist in this society. I think it's not a serious problem for Georgia. What we have done in this sense, for example, our footages, for example, about United States or different European countries, members of the European Union, was not just about how everything is, is in its right place, its pensions are high, and salaries are high, etc. It doesn't work. We need just human stories. And we had stories about conservatives in Poland, for example, or even in Netherlands, for example, who are not happy having this kind of, for example, this gay pride, their streets. And there are Georgians who see themselves in these guys, but they can see that those guys are, just appreciate the right of other people to do this. So, and that is parallel process, not kind of rejection that there is no problem with conservative in America, for example. It is problem. It is not problem even, that is present in the United States, in European countries, as in Georgia. So it's not tragedy. And we can handle with that. We can live with that. But we need safety for vulnerable groups. That's different things. There is no one requests that we have to like everything which happens in this sense. But there is request of democracy and society inside Georgia, not international. I don't mean international society. That is requested by the Constitution of Georgia, that we have to coexist, and safety and rights of vulnerable groups should be upheld.
Okay, last question.
Well, I'm David Chitanava, alumni of the university. So a lot of people, Georgian people, live in foreign countries, especially in the United States and in New York, and it's known as with a large population of Russian-speaking people as well. So even though they live far from Georgia and Russia, in my opinion, some part of Georgians are under influence of Russian propaganda. Those people have voting rights and they can have significant influence of the future of Georgia. So my question is, what's your opinion? Who is responsible to work with those people and how to protect them from Russian influence here in foreign countries out from Georgia?
Here in foreign countries.
Here in the United States or any other foreign countries out from Georgia? Because in Georgia, I know you do, and some other people, that's great job to have some influence to protect people from propaganda. But what about people who are out from Georgia?
I think that they are viewers of Georgian TV channels, as I understand.
Do you think
Are
it's
they?
enough?
No, it's not enough, of course, but I am asking just. Are they?
They can watch it,
Yeah.
with their online. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you mean? How are they? What's the most important instruments against them? Instrument of Russian propaganda against them here. In New York, for example.
I think living in Russian communities, and
Because it's cheap for
communicating
them.
with them, being employed by some Russians who
Sure.
are
Russian.
Do you have any vision how it can be changed? Because it's a very, very tough question.
I think someone from Georgia should work with those communities. It cannot be right now like embassy of government because
Because
they are-
the same government
Yeah,
is
they are
providing
like-
the same.
focus on Russia right now, but it's like some opposition parties, some like influential people in Georgia
big.
can take this responsibility, or you. Or
We can get in the. Maybe have you,
I'd be happy actually, just give me a clue how to do this, I would be happy. I would be happy, that would really, I mean, but your role is, it's much more important than mine or any TV station. The guys like you are, I mean, you can do this as well, you're right-minded, you have this kind of, as I understand, you have some kind of clues to this situation, I'm pretty much sure. And you're Columbia alumni, come on, I remember alumni, you're a Columbia alumni, it's, you know, it's. Columbia is one of the beacons of education in the world. So I think your role is decisive, guys like you, I mean, not just personally yours. But I'm agreed that, I agree with your message, yeah, that we can do more. I mean, Georgians who are the, you know, gravitation of, having some kind of gravitation of centers of gravity. And like, I mean, opinion leaders, maybe we can do more and we must do more. I absolutely agree, but you know, that's very new problem for me.
But it's not only about willingness, it's about organization. It's
It
about
is.
well, providing some kind of organizational framework.
It is.
Yeah, maybe YouTube, you know, but it requires first of all organization. It is not about just applying to someone who's busy with his regular work somewhere. It's about well, the
100%. We are busy
professional,
too.
it's the work up to professional revolutionaries.
Yeah, that we are busy too on the ground in Georgia, that's, but I agree, so, but, you know, the community of, I mean. The local communities are could be decisive as well, so not just, but it's our task too, I agree, I agree.
Can I
Thank
say
you for the question.
about this fact? The people who come here, they don't speak in English. That's why I'm involved in the Russian communities. That's why taking jobs in with Russians because they don't speak English. The number one thing they have to do, they have to learn English. And that's why they want to be involved with Russians. But people are living here 20 years, they don't speak like 2 words of English still. So this is number one problem. And if maybe we have like a free schools for these people, they can learn English or online classes or something like that.
So
There
that
won't
would
be a lot of
strange
Russian
for
influence.
Georgians to open schools here.
No, online
or-
schools for it,
Or,
but even that, there is, well, there was
so the
number
problem
one
with,
problem is they don't speak English.
the problem with language, of course, you can't be part of society if you can communicate with their language. So
There are a lot of Georgians don't speak English and speak Russian and working with Russians in Brighton Beach area and that kind of.
that's, I understand those people as well, because it's a way how to survive, Russian, I understand.
And watch Russian TV all the time.
It's not just Georgia, most of the migrants have been
It's
living
just
here for
like
20
it's
years,
not
they
a
don't
language
speak English at all.
Well, how
Just
many people I
idea,
know
what-
that don't speak English?
No, it's not English, that's just idea how to you see your country in the future. Yes, that's number one, but it's not a problem, I guess, it's idea. How do you see your country's future? And why you like Russian politics in United States even? That's a problem.
Or is there a problem in mindset?
And this is not just
Same
only
problem.
US problem, like I mean, residents of United States who came from the Georgia, it's like in other countries like France, Germany, because Georgians like around the world. And it's the same problem, but we can do nothing because it's like about education. It's not about like preaching to someone learn English. It's everywhere. This problem is not just only here. I think.
I didn't know the English when I came in United States 24 years ago, but my idea was Georgia, and that's all. I never
Still,
liked the Russian politics, even I don't speak English.
So Russia is, I think Russia is not just about Czech speaking English, unable to, communicate in English. So that's very, I mean, it's a mental twist somewhere. Somehow.
So many
Yeah, so-
ladies age of like a grandmother's age, and they work with the Russian families as a maid, and they don't speak any English. I know a lot of people like that.
No, again, there is a
They
difference
just
between.
they can persuade those ladies, I mean, to be more anti-Russian, that's,
Yeah,
We have this
probably,
kind of, the
yeah.
Georgians are very.
Okay, yes.
Smart.
First of all, thank you for the very interesting lecture and it was very fascinating. I want to little bit about different topic. So our Georgian territories are occupied and one of them is Abkhazia and my spouse is from that region and the same hometown you are from. And it really concerns me. So how you see if it's possible to return that region back? It's a huge topic, I know. but,
Okay, yes,
What's your vision about it?
That's first of all, the two things are for me very clear. The Georgia should be, I mean, unified, that's, Georgia is without, Georgia, Abkhazia is Georgia. That's the first topic. And the first topic, not second topic, is that there will not be war in Georgia. I think that is my, profound belief. There should not be war, never, because for Georgian people, especially new generations, war is very unacceptable. And if it comes to even Abkhazia and territorial integrity, they understand that, but they question severely whether it was to wage war, even for that reason. So that is voice of Georgia, not we. Those guys are voice of Georgia. I mean, these new generations. And they were very vocal in the streets of Tbilisi. They won this battle, not we. They won this battle. We were there, we were engaged, but they opened this battle and they won. So that is voice of Georgia, not we. So I'm very biased because I'm from Sukhumi. So I can be ready for any kind of scenarios, but we should know our people better. So voice of our country, our homeland, is new generations. They are not just ready, they are very against of waging war. So I think we should appreciate this position. And what I see, European Union, member of European Union, Georgia is a member of European Union. I think that these kind of processes, we should be ready for any kind of processes in order to have that shared state with Abkhazians. I mean, that should be state of Abkhazians and Georgians and Abkhazians of both. That's why that's reunite Georgia, territorial integrity, reestablish, etc. I would be cautious with these words. What is absolutely clear for me, that should be, we should live together. We should coexist in one state. And we should be part of European Union. And Abkhazia, I'm absolutely sure, who actually hates Russia more than we do, should be part of this European Union. It's actually European Union is confederation, and is going to be federation even. So they will be part for that's for state of Abkhaz and Georgian people. And integration processes, I mean, the being part of the European Union, that's an integration, especially that's an economic integration. Economic integration, a matter of wealth and prosperity, is very influential and powerful state. So the kind of chain reaction, as a chain reaction, it induces different kinds of integration. I want to be sure, for one example is for, an athletic support. That could be the twin port in Ochanchire, which is, maybe 30 or 40 kilometers from Anatolia, not more. And those two ports, deep sea ports, could be twin ports. And very important part of European Union, because European Union, as United States, declared Black Sea and their strategic interest. And granting status to Georgia, they actually grabbed eastern part of Black Sea, eastern coast of Black Sea, that made it part of Europe. Because if you have just one coast of Black Sea, it's not your sea. You need the whole region of it. So Abkhazia is Black Sea coastal territory, let's say, part of Georgia. And these integrational processes, and when it comes to economy, it is always followed by security. So always. So because it's a very big interest, economic interest, it's not just kind of, it's a matter of really uncertain. So what I know precisely, we should live together. They should not be warred. And there is room for working with Abkhazia, this so-called state of Abkhazia. In the South Ossetia is a bit different kind of problems, but there is room for peaceful some kind of reintegration. I don't know even whether what's the correct word for that, but still they have to be part of one state, but that should be our shared state. I mean the kind of state of Abkhazia, Abkhaz and Georgian people.
But it sounds like a wishful thinking, because what important element is missing here. It is Russia's interest. You're talking about the deep sea port.
Yeah.
And I guess deep sea port is more important now for Russia.
It's not wishful
that's
thinking.
What is Abkhazia?
Wishful thinking. It could be if we are not changing government, but this kind of incumbents. Because it will be not wishful thinking, even it will be absurd. Because if we would have a Russian government on the ground, there is no chance for having something better than we have today. I mean, in any direction, including Abkhazia.
I'm referring to Abkhazians. Can we really speak about Abkhazia as an independent player, or at least with some kind of independence?
I am just
zero
about that Ukrainian war, especially its victory of Ukraine, will change a lot. If not, there is no chance, not just for Abkhazia, but for Georgia to survive. I'm very sorry to mention that, but that is how it is. So that's why I'm pretty much sure that we will see in a maybe not nearest future, but in the future, that's a matter of year, maybe or 2 years, a very big Russia, and we should be prepared for having big Russia as a neighbor. We had once big Russia as a neighbor, we were not prepared. There is another window of opportunity, and we should be prepared. With this government, we will be totally unprepared. Vice versa, we will be prepared for different scenarios.
Okay, let's continue this conversation informally. Thank you so much, Nika, for being here.
Thousands of people we are.
Yeah, I got it.